today to our Leveraging Your Growth Mindset virtual boardroom that's been facilitated by HR Recruit and Jane Hodgson. My name's Jo Thompson. I'm a consultant for HR Recruit. I'm joined today by Jane, who will introduce herself shortly. Jane is going to explain how to turn a fixed mindset into a growth mindset. You will learn a very simple technique for giving yourself more confidence when stepping out of your comfort zone. If you've got any burning questions or comments during the session, then please put them into the chat box facility and we will cover them as we go along. I'm now going to hand you over to Jane, who will introduce herself and start the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Hi, everybody. Yeah, my name's Jane Hodgson. Very quick introduction, I guess. I'm a freelance trainer and a coach. I've been doing this for about 21 years now, which is quite frightening because it feels like it was only yesterday that I got started. And I've had thus far a really incredible career. I've worked all over the world. I was just chatting to Jo. I've just been working in Vegas in America. The reason I'm saying it's not a humble brag, I promise. It's because when I talk about things like growth mindset, I've seen what happens when we leverage these simple tools, and I've experienced this all over the world. So it isn't just about, well, it's a cultural thing. It's just how British people are. This is something I've seen and discussed in so many different countries all over the world. So the first thing I want to ask you, can I ask you to use the chat box? You can jump on the microphone if you really want. If you like me and you like to talk, I'm all comfortable with that. But if you want to just jump in the chat box, what skill would you learn? If you could learn any skill, what skill would you learn? Just have a think about that. Anything in the chat box, anything you think, if I could learn a skill, what would that be? Typically, a lot of people saying things like, learn a new language or musical instrument. But if you could learn a skill, what would it be? Play the piano. Yeah. Thank you, Claire. Learning Italian. I'd love to learn Italian because I think they've got the best national anthem in the world. And I just think it's brilliant. Sing opera. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I love that. Play drums. Speak fluent Welsh. Vivian, do you speak some Welsh so far, I'm guessing? If you're saying fluent, maybe you've got a little bit of Welsh. In which case, dim diolch. Pottery, yeah. Learn Spanish. Improve singing. So you can sing a little bit. That's fantastic. Saying no to cake. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I would love to learn that skill. And that is a skill. Believe it or not, that is actually a skill. Draw or paint, ballroom dancing, be a mind reader. Yeah, that would be helpful, wouldn't it? Fabulous. Become a philosopher. You're halfway there. The fact that you're even thinking it means you're halfway there. Listen, I'm going to come back to that, okay? I want to ask you, have you ever found yourself saying something like this? Not necessarily this specifically, but something like, oh, it's just not me. I'm not very good at that. I'm not, I'm not great at this or whatever. Give it at the bottom of your screen. There's a reactions button and you can see there's little love hearts and thumbs up and things like that. Give me a thumbs up if you've ever said that to yourself. I'm not good at that. That's not me. Yeah, of course we have. Yeah, we're seeing thumbs up now. And we've all said it, haven't we? I for years, I used to say I'm not good at Excel. And it was a nightmare because I had to use Excel for a job. And it was, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at that. Let me talk to you about something called the Black Cab Study. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, if you want to become a taxi driver in London, a black cab driver, not an Uber driver or a minicab, but a black cab driver, you have to do what's called the knowledge. And people got very, social scientists, neuroscientists got very interested in this idea of the knowledge, because how does it work? Because what happens is somebody who wants to do knowledge, exactly as the picture is showing now, they'll get on a motorbike with a little clipboard and they've got some addresses and things like that. And they'll literally drive around London. And in this period, they'll cover up to 50,000 miles. They have to remember over 25,000 roads. Okay, in London, and not just remember them, but how each one gets to the other. So if you say, well, I want to go up Morris Street and I need to get to Bluebird Avenue, they will say, well, Morris Street, turn left on Swithin's Lane, then at the roundabout, take the third exit. And they memorize all of that. It's absolutely incredible when you look at the knowledge. They have to memorize over 50,000 points of interest. And that's things like cinemas, leisure centres, theatres. They have to know. So if you get in and go, oh, could you take me to the, Brandon Theatre? They have to know where it is, even if it's a tiny little off back street kind of place. They take on average 3 or 4 years to pass the knowledge, and you can take up to 12 attempts. It is crazy when you watch people do the knowledge. I've become fascinated with the knowledge because it's such an incredible thing, and it's such an incredible commitment. I do wonder if in the days of Uber and SatNav, whether it will still become relevant. But as it stands right now, the best place in the world to get a taxi is in London and in a black cab, because you're not going to get lost, I promise you. So that raises some questions, and here's the kind of sciencey bit. So they looked at this. These people in the early 2000s, they looked at black cabbies and their brains, and they noticed that this part of the brain called the hippocampus, and the hippocampus is responsible for memory and navigation. And so they looked at that and they said, well, something's going on here, because the hippocampus in this demographic of cabbies, is enlarged. So one of two things is happening here. Either just by chance, a load of people with amazingly enlarged hippocampi, which I believe is the term for it, in London suddenly all decided to become black cab drivers, or far more likely, and I think has kind of been proven through various studies, what's happened is they've developed their brains by doing these constant memory challenges. So in your brain you have, and this is the sciencey bit, so please just stick with it, but in your brain you've got these neurons, and you've got billions, potentially billions of neurons, and they'll connect to other neurons. And where they connect, this is called a synaptic connection, and you can see it highlighted in the picture there. If you do something once, one neuron will connect to another neuron via this little synaptic connection, and that'll be it. And it's a bit like drawing a line in the sand. If you just do it once, it'll get washed away. However, what they found was, when black cabbies were memorizing these routes over and over and over again, these synaptic connections became really, really strong. And so it became muscle memory. And they termed this phrase neuroplasticity. And what that means is, just like any other muscle in your body, the brain can reform and reorganize these synaptic connections. And that's usually in response to things like learning, memory, experiencing things, or even following injury. And it's actually a really interesting area of study. If you're a nerd like me, and I am an unapologetic nerd, they're using a lot of the data from these studies actually to look into things like Alzheimer's and dementia, because it was always thought that the brain was a fixed entity. But in actual fact, now they realize, actually, you mean we can use it to grow and expand, just as in the same way as if you go into a gym and lift weights. Can I ask, did anyone learn any new skills during the pandemic? Do you remember the lockdown? Do you remember that? And the streets were empty and you could hear the birds, and there was no traffic. We weren't allowed out, which is pretty miserable, but did anyone learn any new skills? Can you, if so, put it in the chat box for me. Did anyone do the whole, the banana bread and all that stuff? You tried to play, did Couch to 5K, right? Fabulous. Who was that? Tried to play piano, sourdough bread. Yeah, everyone did that. Now, Rachel, I'm going to pick on you if that's all right. Couch to 5K. Did you get up one morning and run 5K? And you can jump on the mic if it's easier. Take yourself off mute if it's easier. Did you just run 5K? Absolutely not. No, of course. Sources from scratch. The point I'm trying to get at here, yoga teacher qualification, fantastic. I'm just nosy. I like this. Oh, calligraphy, Scarlett. Now, you did calligraphy and somebody else, was it you that said you wanted to learn? No, Leslie wants to learn calligraphy. So we've got a fantastic networking opportunity here. So contact each other after the session. The point I'm getting at here is, when we had that downtime and we had a little space and we thought, right, let's try and do something with it. We did it. We didn't become great overnight. Yeah. So, excuse me. So we didn't get people doing Couch to 5K overnight. They took it slowly and they did a little bit, and then they did a little bit more, and they did a little bit more. And that is your body's way of physically coping with the building of muscle and fitness. But there's also this thing going on in the brain, and the brain is forming these synaptic connections, and it's getting better and it's getting stronger. And this is what we call the growth mindset. Now, you've probably heard of it. If you haven't, there's a lady called Carol Dweck. look into her, there's a lot more stuff out there. But she coined this phrase of a growth mindset. And that's the idea that people believe that most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. And she opposes that to something called a fixed mindset. And that's where people believe that their basic qualities are like your intelligence, your talent. That's it. It's a fixed trait. You're either good at it or you're not. And I'm sure we've all had it. And again, the implications for this for children at school, for example, is really, really important. Because if we say to someone at school, you're not good at geography, you're just not, it's not your thing, then of course that child's going to believe it. And in the workplace, it's exactly the same. So when you have a fixed mindset, you tend to say things to yourself like, I'll never be as smart as that person. But actually, a growth mindset recognizes, well, everyone's talented in lots of different ways. So yes, you might be absolutely fantastic at one thing, but I might be brilliant at something else. I was working with a group of project leaders yesterday, and they're working construction, and this is multi-million pound construction for the public sector, massive projects. And all day I'm in awe of these people. I'm like, oh my word, there are so many moving parts. How can you do it? It's amazing. But at no point was I ever jealous of that. At no point was I ever a bit like, oh, I'm annoyed that I'm not that good. Because you know what? I stood in front of a class of 50 people and led a session all day. And there's a lot of people who can't do that. So we all have our own skills. It's okay. Fixed mindset, oh, I can't do that. Growth mindset is, well, I can do stuff. Things like, oh, is this too hard? Whereas the growth mindset says, well, the more I practice, the easier it will get. One little tip I do, and I've kind of not put it on a slide here, but one thing I often do when something's really challenging, I say to myself, visualize yourself in 6 months. So when I started a new job, for example, a few years ago, I hated being out of my depth. I don't like not knowing where everything is and what's going on. And I'd always say, well, listen, visualize yourself in 6 months. You'll be fine. You'll be great. Don't worry about it. And that's a great example of a growth mindset. Oh, I make mistakes. I'm useless. Or, oh, I made a mistake. That's interesting. What can I learn from that? I'm not advocating go out and make mistakes by any means, but we all make them. So let's try and use them. Oh, it's not working. I give up. Versus, oh, it's not working. What else can I do? I'm going to try a different approach. So Carol Dweck says we've got these kind of two mindsets. And to be honest with you, I like to think I've got quite a growth mindset in lots of things. My default is nearly always the fixed mindset stuff. That is nearly always my default. I get criticized at home by my other half. Oh, you give up. And I'm like, no, I do. I give up really easily. And then I go back to it. And then I go, come on, Jane, get a grip. So, you know, Carol Dweck wouldn't advocate that you're going to be one or the other. Quite often you are both. But it's knowing that, and it's having that self-awareness to go, I've lapsed into my fixed mindset here. I need to reevaluate and recalibrate. So what does this mean? Let me ask you, just give me in the chat, give me a yes or a no, or even tell me a little bit more about it if you like. But have you ever stopped yourself going for an opportunity because you've just told yourself you wouldn't be good at it? Again, in the chat box, yes, no, or you could even say, yep. And if you want to share, that's fine. It's not therapy, but you're very welcome to share if there's anything you want to talk about. Yeah. Have you ever stopped yourself? Yes. No, fantastic, Gemma. I like that. Most people have, to be honest, as we're seeing. Yeah. Yeah. Most people have. Again, that's another question. The reason I kind of mentioned, yes, for more senior jobs. Yeah. I took one look at the personal spec. I took one look at the personal spec and never be able to do all that. See, it makes me sad because you probably could. Or even if you couldn't, you could learn to do it. So you could probably do 70% of it right now, but within time, you could probably be brilliant. I've asked this question. The reason I said up front that, you know, I've worked in lots of organizations and all that stuff. I've asked this question pretty much all over the world. And I would say I usually get about a 99% rate of people saying, yeah. Yeah. Joe, yes, if I don't feel I meet 100% of the job criteria. There is a kind of theory that, you know, some people, if they meet 80% of the job criteria, think they're not good enough. And some people think if they meet 80% of the criteria, oh, I'm good enough, I'll just learn the rest. And I guess it's a job involving numbers. Now, the thing is, Leslie, what I want to point out is there is a difference between growth mindset and what you actually enjoy. So you probably could do numbers if you wanted. And, you know, I've done jobs where I've had to do reports and Excel and all the things that I don't like. Didn't enjoy it, but I can do it. there's a difference between sticking to what you enjoy and doing something, or being afraid to do something because you're worried you're not going to be good at it. Or worse, in fact, somebody else has told you won't be good at it. That's the thing that really frustrates me. So what I'm going to do now, excuse me, I was getting over a bit of a cold. I'm going to just go through a few strategies for growth mindset. And again, throughout this, please just chip in the chat box. I want this to be as interactive as possible. There's nothing worse than just sitting and being talked at for half an hour. Yeah, good on you, Vivian. Challenging and trying new things. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Leslie, you can do it. Don't write yourself off. It just means you probably don't want to, and that's okay as well. So my first strategy really is progress, not perfection. Anyone know who any of these characters on the screen are right now? Any guesses? Chat box if you want. Microphone if you're happy to jump on. Anyone?
One I would say is Michelle Biles, and one maybe a Williams sister.
It is, yeah. Well done. Yeah, well, it's Simone Biles actually. It's the gymnast Simone Biles and Serena Williams. And then we've got Jason Kenny, who is the UK's most decorated Olympian. I think he's got 6 or 7 gold medals. And then we've got Max Whitlock, and again, he's a very celebrated Olympian. Now, here's the thing. When Serena Williams won Wimbledon, let's say, or when Simone Biles got her gold medal, did she stop? Did they say, well, that's it now, got my gold medal, I've reached perfection, pretty much done now, what do I do? Just retire, I suppose. No, of course they didn't. In actual fact, there's no such thing as perfection. So each one of these athletes recognizes that no matter how much you do, you got to keep going, you got to keep going. And you keep going until you physically can't, in sport in particular. It will be something like your physicality that will stop you. But when we search for perfection, we are setting ourselves up for failure, because none of us has a perfect life. I would say I'm lucky. I don't like the term luck, but I've made lots of choices and I'm happy with my life, right? I have a good life. I have a job I love. I've got people that love me. Is it perfect? No. And that's the thing. We should not be aiming for perfection. And quite often a fixed mindset, well, if I can't be that, then I'm not doing it. So if you're learning couch to 5K, just as a really good example, and you can't run that 5K in the first couple of days, you just give up. So if we're searching for perfection all the time, we're always going to set ourselves up for failure. We're always going to be disappointed, and we're always going to feel like we're not good enough. So my first strategy for you is think about progress, not perfection. Anyone know what any of these 3 people have in common? Now, I'm just going to put it out there because I showed this to somebody the other day and they went, well, they're all really rich. Okay, yeah, other than that, any guesses what these 3 people have in common? They're all American, I guess that. They're all very rich. They're all very successful in their own right. Let me give you a hint. They've all been absolute failures at some point. Yeah, did they start off poor? I think they probably did actually. Depends what you mean by poor, I guess. But they all failed. Very early on in their careers, they all failed spectacularly. Oprah Winfrey was fired. She was a news anchor on a local news primetime news show, and she was fired. This wasn't good at it. And look at her now. She's the most powerful woman in American media. You've got Spielberg in the middle. He applied to go to University of California's filmmaking school 3 times, and 3 times got rejected. Now you imagine being that person on the board who rejected Steven Spielberg 3 times. Come on now. And then you've got obviously Michael Jordan. Now Michael Jordan is widely recognized as the best basketball player ever. I don't watch basketball. It's not my thing. But I know about Michael Jordan, and I'm sure a lot of you do. Some of you may even be wearing some of his clothing. He has such a big brand. But he said he's missed more than 9,000 shots in his career, right? So we need to learn to fail and take that on the chin and realize that failure isn't the be all and end all. 26 times he's been trusted to take a game-winning shot. and he's missed. You imagine that? 26 times. He's Michael Jordan. He's got thousands of eyes on him. Everybody's like, yeah, Jordan's got this. It's going to, and then, oh, he's missed. Did he sit at home and go, oh, it's not fair. Shaquille O'Neal's better than me? No, he didn't. He learned to take failure on the chin. And failure is actually a kind of iterative process. It's a way of actually getting to success. Thomas Edison said, I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work. And sometimes that information is every bit as important. So when we do fail, you need to think of that. It's not oh, I'm not good enough. It's actually, okay, this is one little experiment on the path to that end goal. This is a necessary part of that iterative learning process. If anyone I know we've got a sort of HR slant on this call. If anyone out there is L&D, you'll be familiar with the learning cycle. And it is, go out there, do something, evaluate it, change it, do it again. And failure is part of that. It builds character. It builds resilience. If you look at the people, I love a saying that I stole from someone. I can't remember what, but it's smooth seas don't make great sailors. Yeah. If you learn to sail in those rough seas, then you can do anything. So see that as a real challenge to build your character. It also gives you data. You're trying something, you're experimenting with something. Actually, now that's failed. That's data. That's one bit of data that tells you, yes, we can now write that bit off because we can't do it because of this. It gives you information. It's never a bad thing. And it gives you an opportunity to try new things. What you'll often find is when a team is successful first time round, they go, oh, this works. Let's do it this way. Then they stick to that. When you go in, and I've gone into companies and I've gone, well, why do we do it that way? Oh, we've always done it that way. Well, have you tried anything else? Well, no, it works. Okay, so it's good enough. Yeah, it's good enough. But is good enough good enough? So when you kind of get it right first time, it means you don't bother looking for alternative ways of doing things and alternative theories. So failure really is just a process. It's a step process to learning and to achieving. So thinking about success, okay, so sorry, progress. So think about progress, think about learning to fail, capture your successes. Several years ago, I was in a kind of dark place just before the pandemic. I wasn't really sure what was going on. And I found myself being really quite negative and doubting myself and what have you. And maybe slipping into that growth mindset, that fixed mindset of, oh, I'll never be able to achieve what I want to achieve. And I started writing down things that I'd done all right, that I was quite pleased with. And at first it felt like some sort of ego trip. I didn't really like it. I felt quite uncomfortable with it, right? Because we don't like doing that, do we? We don't like shouting about what we're good at. But I kept a little Word document on my desktop. And every time I'd achieve something, I'd write it down. Didn't have to be a big thing. It might just be, oh, I had a great conversation with X today, or managed to get that piece of work done and got it in ahead of time, or whatever it was. Something I was really pleased with. And so I would write it down. And then when I was having that dark day, I'd go back to that Word document and I'd open it up and I'd go, yeah, do you know what? I'm actually doing all right. I'm not as bad as I think. That voice in my head needs to stop. So I'm going to ask you now, what's gone well for you in the last couple of weeks? Just have a think. I'll give you a second to think about that. I'd love to hear about any successes. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. I'm not asking you to say, yeah, I've won a £4 billion contract. But what's gone well? One time, I was really, really struggling to think of something that had gone well. And do you know what I put in my diary? I put down that I had managed to get, the Salt and Shake crisps, the ones where we get the little blue bag. I opened a packet of them and I got 2 bags of salt. I put that in my diary. Yeah. What's gone well for you? What's gone well for you? Yeah. Hit 10,000 steps. Fabulous. That's great. Well done. That is good. Yeah, I do that too. I write down positive. Excellent. Yeah, write down positive feedback. Again, we are that kind of weird nation that we don't like positive feedback. I'm not asking you to go and broadcast it. Just write it down. Have it in a place for you. And And then when you're not feeling great, you can go and check in on it. Finally booked a holiday. Nikki, where are you going? I love hearing people's holidays. I love holidays. I live for traveling. Previous clients have come to me to carry out a couple of HR investigations. Excellent. That's really good. And again, what you've done there, Joanne, you've obviously delighted them in a previous life. Somebody once said to me that, you know, if you work well with someone, you have a great relationship with, it's a bit like having a decorator. So when that person goes and moves into the new home, in a new job, they're going to take you with them. And that's how I get my work. I've just literally landed a contract with someone that I worked with 18 years ago. So fantastic news. Well done. Presenting, running a culture program. Excellent. That's great. Well done. Booking a holiday. You won an award. Wow, you won an award. That's brilliant news. See? Excellent. Italy. Fantastic. Was the lead referee with swim competition. Spring clean the house. I love a bit of a spring clean. I must admit, I'm obsessed with that. Stacey thingy, sort your life out. Do you know what I mean? I'm always looking for hacks on how to clean sinks and things like that. This is my challenge to you as well. So you can take these little strategies and you know, you don't have to do them all. You might adopt one or two. This is a really easy one to do. Next time you're having a good day, keep a little private document. Don't have to share it. It's not about shouting it from the rooftop. But what you need to do is write it down. And then the next time you're having that doubt and you find yourself getting stuck in that sort of, you know, that fixed mindset of, oh, I can't do this. Look at all the things you can do. Oftentimes, I as a coach as well, people will come to me and they'll tell me all the reasons they can't get out of the situation that they're currently in. Oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. And I let them do it. And I say, okay, let's have that. Yeah, can't do this, can't do that. Fantastic. And once they've poured it all out, I go, right, what can you do? So quite often we'll spend a lot of time thinking about the negative stuff. And I really would encourage you to start documenting some of the good stuff, because you are doing good stuff. It's very, very often we're so busy in the job, in the weeds, we don't take time to stop, reflect, and really appreciate it. Just get curious about the world around you. Yeah. You can find out so much by just listening to people. And I love, I'm one of the very kind of rare people that I love networking, because I love the idea that there's people in the room that have got amazing experiences that I can learn from. And so kind of getting out of that fixed mindset, instead of being jealous about other people's successes, which is what happens when you get people that are very insecure, get curious. Go, well, how did you do that? What can I learn from you? Have you got any tips for me? How can I leverage what you've done? And really just get curious about the world around you. And that will lead you to start seeing challenges not as things which are getting in your way and stopping you from achieving. They're just the things that you need to learn from. Okay, I'm going to take that on, because at the end of that challenge, I'm going to come out of it a better person. So get curious. Now, if you only take one of these tips away today, this is, I think, probably the best and the easiest one for you to use. Leverage this word yet. It's a tiny, tiny word, but it means so much. This is your superpower. So if when I asked you earlier, excuse me, when I asked you earlier, what's your skill? Okay, Claire wants to play the piano. So I'm going to say Claire can't play the piano yet. Okay, Gemma can't speak Italian fluently yet. Okay, Rachel, she can't sing opera yet. Yeah, Kristen doesn't speak fluent Spanish yet. Nikki can't play the guitar yet. What am I doing? Why am I adding yet to those? What does it do? You tell me. What do you think that little word yet is doing? When I use it in that context, what does that little word do? Anyone? Let me know what you think. Yeah, positive spin.
At some point you will be able to do it.
Thank you, Leslie. Absolutely. What I'm doing is I'm leaving the door open, aren't I? So, I can't do it yet. But imagine myself in 6 months. Maybe I can. Takes away that limiting belief. Absolutely. That self-limiting belief. That voice in your head. Joe, I've used this with somebody I'm currently mentoring, concerned she didn't have all the answers. Yeah, exactly. But commit to coming back and find out when you do. Little tip. I picked this up from a mate, and when somebody says I don't know the answers, he would always say, okay, think a second. If you did know the answers, what would that be? And you'd be amazed how many times that works. How many times you can trick people's brains into going, oh, well, that would be this. Because somewhere they do know the answers. They just haven't got to it. Yeah, gives you hope. Time is coming when I can. Of course, yeah, absolutely. Takes away these limits. I will get there. Absolutely. Moves you towards the possible. And this is, for me, this has been the most powerful thing in my kind of career, is this idea of yet. I can't fix an engine yet. But you know what? I go and learn. I go and find out. This is what I did during lockdown. I earned the nickname Mrs. Fix It. So during lockdown, I just learned to fix things. I fixed the garden fence. I fixed the gate. I fixed the bin lid that went off. I fixed part of my car. I just learned to fix things. And the way we learn now is so everything's accessible. When I started in L&D 20 years ago, it was very much classroom chalk and talk. But now, YouTube it. Google it. You'll find it. So putting that word yet means I have left that door open. I am not closing the door on that possibility. I am leaving that option open. I can do this. If I want to do it, I could potentially do this. So 5 strategies. Progress, not perfection. Learn to fail. Capture your successes. Get curious about the world around you and really leverage that power of yet. And then at this point, I usually go, yeah, but, you know, what about people who are just naturally gifted? I mean, some people just, they've got an advantage, right? Michael Phelps has an unusual body. He actually is 6'4", but he has the torso of a man that is 6'7". Now, what that means is he has a natural advantage in the water. He has this amazing physical advantage. So it's easy to look at him and go, well, that's not growth mindset. That's just Mother Nature gifted in that body. Well, yes and no, because he still had to work very, very hard for it. So it's not just that every tall person is a great swimmer. It would make sense. You know, we'd be seeing Stephen Marchand, people like that. They'd be swimmers, right? No, what's actually happened is, yes, he had an advantage, but he has worked very, very hard for it. So we can't just dismiss people who have a physical advantage and say, well, that's even better. Because look at this lady. This is Ellie Simmons, if you don't know. She's a swimmer. She hasn't got a big torso. She's very small. That's part of her physiology. But she could have looked at Michael Phelps and gone, oh, well, I've got a small body. I'm not tall. I'll be a rubbish swimmer. And she didn't. She worked hard. So she leveraged that growth mindset. And she said, do you know what? I can do it. Yes, I have this body that isn't necessarily cut out for being the best swimmer in the world, but I can be the best me that I can be. And I can be the best person in my category that I can be. And she was. I just want to leave you with a kind of a personal story, if you'll indulge me a little while. When I was a kid, I was about 7, my brother took me to watch Blackburn Rovers, and you might argue that's something like child cruelty. You know, parts of me wish he hadn't, but there it is. And all my life, I've supported Blackburn Rovers, and I love football. And at school, I wanted to play football, but they said to me, well, you can't because you're a girl, and girls can't play football. So when I was about 10, my mum and dad said, what do you want for your birthday? And I said, I want a Blackburn Rovers kit. He said, okay, we'll get you a kit. So I got a kit, and you can see me there, and I'm as proud as punch. Really happy. And I was like, oh, I've got a kit. And I remember going into school. I remember the teacher was Miss MacDonald. And I said, Miss MacDonald, I've got a kit. So can I play football on Fridays with the lads? And she said, no, because girls don't play football. I don't think you understand. It's nothing to do with the kit. Girls do not play football. Now, when you're a child and you are told repeatedly by an adult that you can't do something, you end up believing it. And this is the same in the workplace. If you've got a boss that tells you can't do something, if you get told enough, you believe in it. And for years and years and years, I believed it. I thought, oh, girls can't play football. And then I watched the Euros and I saw, you know, the Lionesses, and I thought, oh, they got it wrong. They did. They got it wrong. Girls can play football. Now, 50 years have passed. So I'm thinking, well, it's probably too late for me. But then I saw an advert for a local women's team. And here I am at my very first tournament at the age of 56. Not the best player in the world, but I absolutely loved it. And it took me a long time to get there because for a long time, people with a fixed mindset told me I couldn't do it. I'm never going to be Beth Mead. I'm never going to win awards. I get that. I'm not unrealistic. Growth mindset isn't about I'm going to be the next big thing. It is about can I do something and will I enjoy it and can I try it? I'm not going to be Beth. I know I'm not. She's way younger than me. And, you know, I've got bad knees now. However, I've just won an award for the most improved player in my team in my first year. Now, if you'd have told that 10-year-old girl that at some point, it doesn't matter how big that trophy is, at some point you're going to win an award for your football, she'd have burst with pride. So when somebody tells you can't do something, you don't have to take the word for it. Yeah. It's not about being the best in the world. If you go in with that mindset, you're going to be disappointed. The question you really should be asking yourself is, can I be better than I was yesterday? So that's me. I'm just going to leave some information on the screen. That's me if you want to get in touch. I am very happy to hang on if anyone wants to chat or tell me about their successes or tell me about what they're going to do and what they're going to apply. But other than that, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us this lunchtime. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope you've got something out of it. Please take some of these forward. Just decide you're going to be awesome, and then just go and be awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Jane, can I just... You still support Blackburn Rovers?
I do.
Oh.
You can't change your mind, can you? Once you're in, you're in.
You make your family very happy.
Oh yeah, no, I still go. I'm getting tickets for Portsmouth down here in a few weeks. Yeah,
very good.
It's like an illness. I can't seem to give it up.
Right, I'll just do the close. So thanks very much to everybody that's attended the session today. I'm going to send out an email this afternoon to everyone that's signed up for the event, and I'll put a post on LinkedIn. So if you'd like a copy of the follow-up information or the recording, then please put a comment against the LinkedIn post. Our next event is on Thursday, the 13th of March at 12:30, and it's called How to Build One HR Team, United and Aligned. A link to sign up for this will be included in the email. If anyone's recruiting, we've also got accountancy recruit, FD recruit, and exec recruit in the group. Otherwise, I'd just like to say a massive thanks to Jane for your time and effort in putting the event together, and to everyone for signing in. Thank you.